Nathan Law and Alex Chow were convicted of taking part in an unlawful assembly for their roles in the massive 2014 democracy protests. The trio were initially given suspended sentences, but they received harsher penalties after the Justice Secretary requested a sentence review, which raised concerns about the rule of law in Hong Kong.
If I unfortunately will be sent to prison, I guess it will just motivate more people to stand to support us and also support our campaign in the by-election. I hope even I am inside prison, I can still vote to support my teammates.
Joel Flynn joins me now live from Hong Kong with more on the story. Joel, good to have you on. Now, we understand that the case has been heard and that a decision on the appeal isn't expected today. So what's the latest from Hong Kong?
Well, Ali Jan, in the last hour, we have heard from the court itself that a decision on this appeal from Joshua Wong, Nathan Law and Alex Chow won't be decided today. The court was adjourned and we were told that a verdict will come later. That wasn't what the lawyers for the defense were expecting. They said earlier that they thought that we would get a verdict today. Both the defense and the prosecution have had their arguments heard, though, so we are just awaiting the 5 judges to make a ruling. Just to be clear, there are 2 cases going on against these Occupy protesters, both against Joshua Wong, only one of them against Alex Chow and Nathan Law. Today's centers around these charges of illegal assembly or for refusing to leave one of the protest sites in 2014. There is another case for Joshua and 19 other protesters who were found guilty of contempt of court as well. Rather, 3 of them were found guilty. Others are still awaiting their plea. We are supposed to hear sentencing for them for that tomorrow. As far as today's appeal is concerned, though, from what we understand here, the chances of this appeal being successful are pretty slim. The central argument of their appeal against illegal assembly is whether the court should consider the intention behind the civil disobedience movement of Occupy. It was, of course, the appeal court itself, don't forget, which ultimately decided to jail these 3 defendants in the case after they were initially given those non-custodial sentences. The case will likely set a precedent as well for future civil unrest prosecutions, and it also comes at a time when we're talking, which is why we're talking about it rather, when Hong Kong's whole judicial system, and in particular its independence, is being questioned by many people here in the city and indeed further abroad as well.
Let's talk about a little bit about that. So no decision today, but when you look at the process, this case has been dragged through the Hong Kong Court of Appeals repeatedly over the past few months. And it comes at a time, like you mentioned, when the territory's judicial independence is being questioned by some. So what's the feeling like there?
Well, this case alone, as you said, Alijan, obviously does put Hong Kong's judicial independence in the spotlight and perhaps the rule of law here more broadly. It is something that Hong Kong loudly trumpets, certainly when it comes to trying to attract financial institutions and companies here. And it is something I think it's fair to say that a lot of Hong Kongers themselves are historically proud of. Just in the last few weeks, though, we have had even more controversy over the courts, as well as the ongoing issues related to the Occupy protests. Just before Christmas, we had the decision to allow the Chinese mainland authority in a Hong Kong station for the new high-speed rail link. That was hugely controversial and was also criticized as unconstitutional by some big hitters in the legal community here. They were promptly scolded by some politicians, including Hong Kong's leader, Chief Executive Carrie Lam. The pro-Beijing among them criticized these lawyers for being what they called elitist. Since then, we have had the Justice Secretary resign. That was just at the beginning of January, and even a couple of weeks ago, Teresa Zhang, who replaced him, was barely a day into her new job when local media here found that she had illegal modifications on her multi-million-dollar homes. Now, despite calls for her to resign or even apologize for this, she has refused to step down and has been backed by the government in that move. When you take that, and we take all of that stuff alongside what is happening with these court cases over pro-democracy protests, all of it has very much brought the legal system here into very sharp focus. Exactly what happens in this Joshua case itself could very likely give a strong indication of what the future of that legal system is.
All right, Joel Flynn live for us from Hong Kong, following the case for us. Thank you.